So last time we were together, Ruth made love's request to Boaz. She let him know that she was available. And she invoked the Kinsman-Redeemer custom for the Hebrew people followed. And she chose up to give her own right. Wow, that's just like all jumbled. She chose. I'm starting to talk like Yoda. Yeah, that's good. It's good if you can put the words together.
Guess what Kathy's saying?
Yeah, it'll be like a new game.
Words in the right order.
Yeah. I've watched too much Star Wars in my days, I guess. Anyway, she had chosen to give up her own rights to have a younger man and have her own family, and she, out of love, chose to help Naomi by choosing to marry an older man that would give Naomi an heir. So that was very loving of Ruth to do that. And so when we left off, Ruth was at the threshing floor with Boaz, and they spent the night together, but they kept their integrity. They didn't give in to temptation, and that was really good considering the time period. Everybody was just doing what was right in their own eyes, as we've read, and they did what was right in God's eyes, which was very honorable and is a blessing to see people do that. Even in our day, it's nice to see people walking right and doing what's right. So we left off with Boaz committing to perform the duty of the Kinsman-Redeemer if the closer relative would not. And he was going to try to make sure one way or the other Ruth got married, whether it was to the other guy or to him. And I'm sure he preferred it to him. But he was going to make sure it was done by the law, by God's law. He was going to do it the godly way. So let's take off with where we left off and Ruth 3:14. So she lay at his feet until morning, and she arose before one could recognize another. Then he said, "Do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." So they rose before it was even light enough to recognize each other, to see each other's face. It's pretty dark. Who knows what time that is? Maybe it's 4 in the morning. I don't know. It's very early. They're rising before anybody else. And it's interesting. He says, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Who's he talking to? He's talking to someone other than Ruth. So he must have one of his main servants with him at the threshing floor. Of course, all of his servants should have spent the night there, or the main ones, and maybe his personal servant was there with him. Because remember out on the field, that first time he met Ruth, that one servant introduced them and explained things to Boaz. So maybe that's who's with him. Maybe it's his main guy. And he's telling him, don't let the word get out that she was here. So why do you think he would not want it known that she was there? Reputation, that would be one good assumption. Because he was a good man. He had a good reputation, so he wouldn't want his reputation ruined, and he probably wouldn't want her reputation ruined because he's about to maybe make her I'm just going to keep talking backwards. Make her his bride. Wow. I probably, you know what? I never had my extra cup of coffee today. Wow, I should add some more coffee. Maybe. No, it's too late now. And I think one of the other reasons could be, besides the whole reputation factor, is there's another person involved. There's that other Goel, the other closer relative. It wouldn't look too good if Ruth was at the threshing floor with Boaz and he found out about that. He might think badly and then still not take up the duty, that he's supposed to. So maybe it's to protect that whole possible other outcome. But I think it's all for good reasons. He's trying to protect her, him, and the other relative. So let's read on. Ruth 3:15 through 17. Also he said, "Bring the shawl that is on you and hold it." And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Is that you, my daughter?" Then she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, "These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me. for he said to me, do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law. So now he's being very generous once again with her. He's giving her approximately 60 pounds or more of grain that she's got to take home with her. He was generous with her when she was out on the field. He even gave her lunch. You know, he had the men throw sheaves of grain out extra for her. And then he sent home extra food even after lunch that one day.
So that servant must have walked her home then.
Well, yeah, one of them, one or both or somebody must have. I mean, that's a lot.
She carried that much.
I wouldn't think so. It doesn't say exactly, but you could assume that'd be a lot. Well, you know, she worked in the field. Maybe she was strong
I
enough.
was thinking when I read that right now that maybe they gave her the grain so it would look like she had a purpose for being at the threshing floor. So
Well, actually, there's other reasons for it beyond that even. It could have been maybe that, but they give other reasons. And the estimates, they said technically it could have been 60 to 100 pounds.
Oh, jeez.
So he gave her a lot.
It's like carrying a sack of Tatum all the way to...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's...
Wherever.
Yeah, clearing from the fields out back into town, yeah. So no doubt I would think he or his servant would have went with her. And maybe that's why he said, don't tell anybody. Because she couldn't have carried all that. But, so, why do you think he'd want to give her all that grain?
Well, he wants to win her favor, too.
Yeah.
Well, he's thinking about marrying her. He doesn't want his bride working in the fields anymore, right? Because he's a well-to-do man. So, you know, maybe he's, you know, setting her up.
Her to make some bread.
Well, that would be very manlike.
My husband's... Here,
Go home and cook for me.
some flour.
He didn't say that though, and actually he didn't really give it to her. He gave it to Naomi. He's just making, you take it to your mother-in-law, and so this is probably why he gave it. Boaz sent his barley to Naomi to show his commitment as Kinsman-Redeemer.
He wants her to approve.
Well, she's technically, there's no father now, right? So she's the one that would make the marital arrangements, right? Because she's the elder. So the gift of barley could be seen as the bride price, usually given to the father in the Hebrew culture. It's not necessarily all he would have paid for her to be his bride, but you might say it's a down payment on the dowry, on the, you know, the bride price for her. So it's possible that's why he gave so much, was to say, I am committed. I want to make sure she's taken care of. And so he sent all that home. But what's interesting, when you read verse 16, it says, when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, is that you, my daughter? Then she told her all that the man had done for her. So she's asking a strange question. Is it because it's dark? It's 4 in the morning when she's come home. She doesn't recognize her. She's calling out from the bedroom.
Well, it does say previously, don't let it be known that that woman came. So
but this
maybe
is...
they disguised her.
I don't think so. I didn't see any commentaries that said anything like that. It could be the darkness, but there's actually... This is not translated real well. This is New King James Version. And many of the versions will say, is that you, my daughter? It's a sort of a nice, you know, like, welcome home statement.
My version says, how did it go, my daughter?
That's another way you'll see it translated. Okay, now King James actually got this one pretty right. They translated it the way the Hebrew text is translated, the way it would be translated. Who art thou, my daughter? Which has a whole nother meaning. Who art thou, my daughter? Now you think she would know Ruth, right? So why is she asking that?
So could it just be that she was hearing someone coming and didn't know for sure if that was her?
No, this is a different type of question.
Okay.
I think she wants to know if anything happened.
Yeah, like is she still
Is she still a
Ruth or
virgin?
is
Oh, good job.
Ruth or is she now?
You
Yeah.
got it. You got it. That's exactly right. So who art thou? She's being, you know, playing a little game here. Naomi is asking Ruth, who art thou? Although there's a typo there. To find out if she is still just Ruth or if she is the prospective Mrs. Boaz. You know how when you're practicing, when you're going to get married, I'm now Mrs. Glover. You know?
Or in high school, you're doodling all the hard E and plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's why this is one of those places where it's kind of, you know, it's why it's important to sometimes go back to the original text, because a translation may be okay, but it's really not getting to the real point of it. The point is she's trying to find out what happened. Are you still just Ruth, or are you going to be, where's the ring?
She wanted to know if she was engaged.
She wanted to know if she's engaged. What happened? Because you realize she knows she's been gone all night.
Yeah.
And now she comes home with 60 to 100 pounds of grain.
You know she did something right.
Yeah.
She got a prize. Anyway.
Right. Well, and hopefully, you know, she hasn't done anything she shouldn't, inappropriate, that got her paid.
Yeah.
You know. You know, and maybe that's what triggers the questions, like, well, you've got all this grain, you know, what did you do? What did you do? What's going on? So, but anyway, do you remember what Naomi said clear back in chapter 1? She says, I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi? Oh, I must have still had it in King James. Seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me. She had felt emptied and drained because she lost her husband and her kids. She was broke, starving. Everything was gone. She's empty. So, but now, what's happened? What just walked in her door? A lot of food and a basically engaged daughter that will supply her an heir. Boaz did not want Ruth to go empty to Naomi, so he sent grain. Naomi could no longer say she was empty. She had grain to fill her belly and a prospective son-in-law to provide her an heir and fill her with joy. So her whole life is completely turned around from what it was.
I spelled it A-I-O. And I was like, wait, that's wrong.
Oh. Everybody got it? That was your big one. Okay, so reading on, in 3:18 it says, then she said, gosh, I'm talking backwards still. Then said she, I bet I had this still in King James. Sit still, my daughter, until thou know, I did, how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. Wow, that's really unique. Until he have finished the thing this day. King James.
That's why I don't read King James. I read it but
Does that sound weird? I know I read it the other way in the New King James. So he has given, she is saying, wow, this is what happens when you have coffee. Naomi is saying, interestingly, that the man will not be in rest. He will not rest until it's done. Now, how do you think she knows that? How would she have...
She's been there before she started.
The Kinsman-Redeemer is a whole separate issue, though, but why would she think it's good to go? You'll never figure it out.
Because she was there all night and because he gave all that gift?
The gift is the clue. The gift is how he knows, how she knows he won't rest. Okay? So, the 6 ephahs, watch me say it wrong, ephahs, of barley sent a message to Naomi that Boaz would not rest until he settled the matter with the other closer relative. That's the clue, is that it was 6 ephahs. This is what triggered her mind, and I'll tell you why. So, in the Hebrew mind, God worked for 6 days to create the earth, and on the 7th day, he rested. So, for their thinking, it just triggered 6. He's giving me a signal. He's not going to rest. He's going to work until it gets done. So it was just...
He didn't send 7 ephahs.
Huh?
I said, did he didn't send 7 then?
No, well, that's why he did that. He deliberately sent 6 as a secret code, you might say. That was a message to Naomi. Here's payment for your daughter, and I'm not going to rest until it's done. Don't worry, be reassured.
We have one more day.
Yeah, almost, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. There's those things about their culture that you don't think about. And I've been studying some other stuff. I'm like, wow, I never saw any of that before. And I'm like, so interesting when you start tying their culture into the scriptures. So back to Ruth 3:18, she had said, sit still. Excuse me. She said, sit still. And so Naomi gives Ruth a command to sit still or wait and be patient. So once again, if I had gotten to do this lesson last week, it would have been perfectly timed right back to back with Terry's message on waiting, which I thought was funny. The Holy Spirit once again brings up the same subject. There's something he must want us to know. Right? When he repeats stuff like that, he's trying to get something. Because I would have never thought that in this passage, but I love the way the Holy Spirit works. So sometimes we have to wait and be patient while God works on our behalf. So we have our own personal examples right here in our room, things that we're praying for that we have to wait for, things that are desperate, some that aren't so desperate, but we're waiting and we have to wait patiently because it's stuff we can't fix, right? We have personal issues, whether it's financial or family stresses or whatever's going on, we can't fix them. So this is where we've got to wait. It's totally going to be up to God to take care of it. It's going to have to be his miraculous hand intervening in whatever way he intervenes to help us. Oh, wow. Okay. Through faith and patience, we inherit the promises of God. That's something that you can cling on to. We patiently wait for the promises we read about in the Bible. You know, whether it's the second coming we're patiently waiting for. We have a lot of promises we cling to in the Bible, and it's through our faith and our patience that we'll inherit those promises. And there's a couple verses about that. Hebrews 6:12. That you do not become sluggish, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. And this is, I think you probably know people in your life who give up. They're going through struggles or they can't wait for something. And they missed so much, and you can see them missing so much. You don't want to be like that. You want to keep going, keep plugging along, and be faithful and patient. Hebrews 10:36, for you have need of endurance, so that after you've done the will of God, you may receive the promises. So some things are tough, and you need actual endurance to get through them, to get through the process of waiting. I know I have. And you'll grow, you definitely grow as you go through the process of waiting. And so like Ruth, we need to trust God to do what he has said. Because what did Boaz? Boaz represents Christ, right? So as our type of Christ, he said he's going to take care of it. He's going to get her husband one way or another. He's going to deal with the Kinsman-Redeemer subject, and he's going to do it. So just like Ruth, we have to trust God when he tells us something, whether it's a promise we've read in the Bible or whether it's something he's spoken to our heart. We have to trust he's going to do what he said. Psalm 37:5 says, commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. That's one of those great verses to memorize and cling on to. Now the words sit still is what she used in her talking to Ruth, but in other places you can read stand still and be still in the Bible, and they're all commands that you can find throughout the scripture. Moses, for example, when he was near the Egyptian army is right there, he told the people in Exodus 14:13, and Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more, forever. So that's the moment. He's telling me stand still and wait. Just wait on the Lord. He'll take care of that great big enemy army that's standing right beside you. Don't worry about stand still. But then there's moments where he tells us to go forward, and that's what he does in the next verse, or a couple verses later. And the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. So then it was time for them to march and head through the Red Sea. and then watch God work. He's going to take care of the enemy. I love this quote from Warren Wiersbe. He said, "There's a time to stand and a time to march. We must be alert to know which God wants us to do." Sometimes you're going to just be sitting or waiting, and sometimes it's time to move forward. And you have to know what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And you all know Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." That whole psalm, you read it, there's all kinds of things happening in it. You know, whether there's armies waging war, tidal waves, you know, big waves, earthquakes. And they get all the way down to 46:10, "Be still and know that I'm God." The point of that whole psalm is, no matter what's going on, whether the mountains are rumbling or the sea waves are crashing on your ship, you can know that God is in control of it all. No matter what is going on around you, He's above it all, and just be still and know that He is God. None of that stuff matters because He is God, and He will take care of the enemy armies. He'll take care of the earthquake. Whatever it is that's going on in your life, He'll take care of it. And the Hebrew word translated "be still" in Psalm 46:10 means take your hands off. Relax. Isn't that so true? We like to put our hands on everything.
And fret.
And fret. Try to fix it. Do a little bit here, do a little bit there. What can we maneuver to make things work out? Or how can we make this work out faster? Or how can I still remember a time I was very upset with someone for doing something, and it was wrong, and I let my emotions take over, and I was young, inexperienced, and I went to that person at the wrong time, wrong place, and told him, "You can't do this. This is just unfair. Don't you understand?" And tried to explain the whole thing that was going on, and it was just the wrong place, the wrong time. I was trying to push it along, fix it my own way, you know, by conversing at that moment when I should have waited. Didn't help anything. We do that a lot. We tend to piddle with stuff. We shouldn't.
One of the studies in Jesus Calling talks about grasping. And they were talking about like your children, and if you let go of them, then God can take their hands.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought that was such a good analogy. It's like I'm grasping, I need to let that go because I can't do it.
Right.
You know, so that gives God a chance to take their hands.
That's a good illustration.
That's a really good illustration.
Yeah, we do that a lot. We're holding on to whatever, trying to fix it because we're just so desperate to get that bad situation over with, or get that need met, or work out some relationship, and sometimes you just can't force the issue. Just have to wait to take your hands off, just like your illustration of it. And relax. Well, there's a hard one.
There you go. That's the
Seriously?
seriously.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time relaxing. I know it's really silly, but when I get my nails done, Lynn is always like tapping my hand because I get super tense. I just can't relax. She's all, you know.
Does she tell you to breathe?
She just taps my fingers because I guess I just start getting tense, and she's all. I've never been able to just
Yeah.
let
Go. Yeah, I get hit a lot too on my feet or my hands.
You go to a massage, and you go to a massage, and she's saying, "Relax." I go, "I have relaxed."
Yeah. You don't realize this is relaxed.
For my birthday,
This is relaxed for me.
for my birthday, we went and got our nails done, manicure, pedicure, and my group girls too. And I was like, "Mom, you need to relax," because when they were on her feet, she was in pain.
no pain.
Or tell him, like, be gentler.
I'm trying not to upset him, but it was like,
But she was so tense the whole. I was supposed to be relaxing.
it wasn't.
And she's always
It
like,
was not
that makes it hard for me to manipulate your hand. I'm like, I don't do it on purpose. I just,
So-
it was worse when I was working because I'd be sitting there thinking, oh, I should be doing it. You
All
know?
these other things.
Yeah, you think about the things you can do, but you know, we need to, this is a really good point. Take your hands off. Chill out.
Self-care.
Yeah, and that's a hard one, but we need to try to really, the be still, it almost takes that be still to a whole nother level when you think of it that way. So,
I've talked about reflective practice before, that we did that whole training on reflective practice, and one of the things that we talked about a lot is when there's, like, you're in a group and you're discussing and there's a silent moment, that's okay. Just be still and let there be silence. It's okay for silence. It makes everybody feel uncomfortable when it's silent, but it's okay. Just be still and let there be silence. If somebody doesn't have anything to say, just take a moment and be silent.
nothing wrong. We're so used to the noise factor. We all got to have noise going all the time. And at this point in the story, this is where we pretty much see Ruth exit the story. Most of the rest of the story, she is not going to be in it.
Really?
Yeah. It's the book of Ruth, but chapter 4 isn't about Ruth. I mean, it is about Ruth, but she's actually got to be still and wait. So she takes her cue from Naomi and does what she's supposed to. She's been a very obedient
You mean from her
woman.
perspective, right? Or because she is in chapter 4.
She doesn't really have an active role in chapter 4.
It's more of just describing. what's
Yeah,
happening.
it's more of a passive. She's not actually, you know, doing anything. She's being, yeah, she's waiting. So what else are we all waiting for? We're waiting for the work to be done on us, just like Ruth is waiting for her new Kinsman-Redeemer situation to be worked out. Naomi's waiting for that to all be worked out. We're all waiting to have Jesus' work done in us. But what did God tell us about that? He said, be confident, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. So the yeah, it is. So sometimes you may get frustrated with yourself because you aren't being patient, you aren't waiting, or maybe you've got a battle with some particular sin in your life, or maybe you just know you need to be more mature, you know, in some area. Be patient. God's still working on you, right? And he says he'll get it done. Just like Boaz said he'd get his work done, God will get his work done on you. So be patient. God will finish what he's doing with us too.